Hello and welcome. It's 10 p.m. in Banjul and this is the Gambia Radio and Television Services, broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. In our headlines this hour, His Excellency President Adama Barrow embarks on spot visits to several infrastructural projects in the Greater Banjul area. The Minister of Finance, C.D. Keita, presides over the opening ceremony of the 18th edition of English-speaking African Supreme Audit Forum, which is underway in Banjul. Plus, the newly appointed Minister of Petroleum and Energy starts work with a day's familiarization visit to NAWEC stations in urban areas. In soccer, the Blue Boys Walidan Football Club suffers a second successive defeat in the GFF's Male First Division League as they lost 1-0 to Hawks. In the internationals, polls close to elect a new president in the Philippines with the son of former dictator Ferdinand Marcos as the favorite to win the high-stakes race and restore his family to the pinnacle of power. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and much more coming ahead with me, Marianne Jai Ajayi, and do stay with us.
More than 40.
Well, we begin this bulletin with the presidency because the president, His Excellency Adama Barrow, on Sunday embarked on spot visits to several sites across the Greater Banjul area to personally assess the progress of ongoing infrastructural projects and their potential impact on the lives of the population. The president also paid condolences to the family of the late Alhaji Dembo Santang Bojang, who died last week. Mamadou Jallo reports.
The president first visited the site of ongoing works in Banjul, part of a massive project to rebuild and modernize the road and drainage infrastructure in the capital city. He went on a conducted tour of some of the streets under construction and later proceeded to Bone Road, where he also visited a large container handling and storage facility, which is intended to decongest the busy Banjul port. The project is seen as an important development for the port and its capacity to handle cargo. From Banjul, the president drove to the airport junction in Yundum, where construction on one of the OIC project roads is in full swing. The president was received by the deputy governor of the West Coast region, Musa Suso, and the OIC communications director, Fali Fadera, who briefed him on the status of the project. According to Mr. Fadera, the project is going according to schedule, as the contractor has already laid the first layer of gravel and is on course to meeting the deadline. The president expressed satisfaction with the pace of the works and argued that it will silence critics who have continuously doubted the project's completion before the summit later this year. The president finally drove to Brikama to pay condolences to the family of the late Alhaji Dembo Santang Bojang, who died last week. The president met family members of the late Alcalo at their residence, expressing sorrow and shock at the loss of one of the most respected elders of Brikama. His death has left a huge vacuum in Brikama, President Barrow lamented, but I assure family members that I will stand with them in this difficult period of mourning. He urged unity amongst the people of Brikama, saying the late Dembo Santang Bojang did a lot to hold together what many believe is the biggest settlement in the Gambia. Mamadou Jallo, GRTS News.
Now Now, the newly appointed Minister of Petroleum and Energy, Abdoulaye Job, has resumed work by rolling his sleeves with a day's familiarization visit to NAWEC stations in the Greater Banjul and West Coast region. Now, Minister Job was accompanied by a team of technicians under his ministry. Sheikh Jouf, who travelled with a delegation, filed in this report.
Petroleum and Energy, Mr. Abdoulaye Job has embarked on a familiarization tour to the NAWEC's operational sites in the Greater Banjul area and West Coast region, respectively. The tour began at Koto Power Station, which is the biggest and oldest station in the country. The team proceeded to Sukuta Water Treatment Plant and Jabang Power Substation before going to Birkama Water Treatment Plant and Power Station. Speaking to journalists, Honorable Job expressed gratitude and congratulated staff of NAWEC for their efforts, but still emphasized that a lot of work has to be made to sustainably address the energy and water needs of the population.
I, the Permanent Secretary, the Managing Director, and all other sector players will work diligently to make sure that we achieve the objectives of His Excellency. In addition, you've seen that we visited the Kotu Power Station, which is one of the first power station after Banjul. There are challenges, but I am informed by NAWEC that the Managing Director and his team, that efforts are being made to make those generators available.
Honorable Job further outlined that the provision of uninterrupted energy and water supply to customers should remain as the utmost priority for the staff of NAWEC.
You know, we're not going to leave anyone behind. I mean, but if you're trying to waste our time, we'll leave you behind. And I think that's what the message to, and we'll not allow anybody to disrupt the work of the Managing Director and the team. But equally, the Managing Director and the team must involve everybody.
The tour will continue to other stations in the country. Thank you. Reporting for Justice News.
Now, still on energy matters, because administrative staff and stakeholders of renewable energy potentials in the Gambia REPGAM project on Monday began a week-long field visit to its intervention areas. As Usman Manu reports, REPGAM project seeks to complement government's energy drive by providing free, clean and reliable renewable energy supplied to 26 sites, which include public institutions and communities in all the regions of the country. Let's take a look.
This activity provides the REPGAM project staff an opportunity to understand activities undertaken since the launch of the project. Engineers of the project crisscross the entire 26 beneficiaries, including institutions, to assess the energy needs through solar power to be installed by the project. The Deputy Project Director, Dr. Ibrahim Sonko, explained the purpose of the exercise.
We're going around with the project staff who are at the background, try to be leading the implementation activities of the project from the side of the finance, the logistics, and also the documentation part of the project. The initiative was the solar power checklist, because the company that's supposed to install the system, we're working closely with the project staff, the technicians, to tell them some of the appliances that these beneficiaries are using and the energy output from each of these areas, and also the topography of the areas, the environmental aspect of the areas. So that's what we are doing for the previous article of the trip.
The delegation visited two major facilities in Edward Francis Small Teaching and Carnifin General Hospitals, respectively. Currently, the generation electricity power at Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital stood at 1.2 megawatts, according to Joseph Mendy, who led the team on tour. With major infrastructural transformation at the hospital, REPGAM project is set to increase the energy supply through solar power to address electricity interruption from the national grid. Carnifin General Hospital accommodates patients across the entire regions, and the administrator of the hospital, Babukar Sen, underscored the importance of adequate and reliable energy supply to the health system.
That the provision of healthcare services requires two fundamental elements. One is uninterrupted power supply and uninterrupted water supply. So where there's interruption in these two, definitely it will really affect service delivery. So we're extremely grateful and be rest assured that you'll have the full support and cooperation of the management and the staff of this institution. And what you requested, inventory of all the equipment and installations here and their power ratings, we'll work on that.
The Gambia Senior Secondary School heavily rely on NAWEC for energy supply, and the school is spending huge amount on electricity car power system. The school now has a fully furnished computer lab that provides tutorial for students. Momodu Jallo is the principal of the school.
Like at the moment, we have a new refurbished computer lab, and we have over 62 computers there with air conditioners and so on. But we spend every week, on cash, but it's too expensive. So this is why we are very much appreciative of this project, and we are hopeful that it's not only going to be the computer lab.
The Gambia Technical Training Institute, which now houses the University of Science, Engineering and Technology, USET, is another educational facility that is set to benefit from the project. The delegation visited the generator room of the center to see the state of the equipment before having a brief stop at the St. John's School for the Deaf. The principal of the school, Daniel J. Mendy, explained that the school still struggles with electricity supply. He is hopeful that the project will ameliorate their challenges.
Now we have a problem in the evening.
The Bakote Fish Market was the final destination on day one of the exercise. The manager of the fish plant, Modu Cham, emphasized the importance of reliable energy supply to the preservation of fish and fish products.
Basically, every month we pay now like 250,000. Even unfortunately, just last week they came and disconnected our electricity. So having this project being an alternative to our energy supply is more than a relief to the board, to the management, to KMC.
The talk continues in the West Coast region. Usman Mane, GRTS.
Now to a devastating news as fire outbreak ravaged a family compound in Brikama, Nyambai, belonging to one Suleiman Sanyang. The incident has destroyed virtually everything in all the houses within the compound. Victims say the outbreak was caused by electric surge, while Famara Baji has the rest of that story.
Sad, shocking, and devastating. This fire outbreak is said to have started around midday on Monday. The landlord Suleiman Sanyan said it was caused by electric surge.
On the right side, on the left side.
The destruction caused by the monster is immeasurable. Virtually all the valuables in the 4 rooms were burned down to ash.
Nuclear following Mindy, going over like general mass because honey fem month, yeah, go over that maintain science, I think.
This Sanyamkunda family are now left with no shelter, as their building, together with the furniture and the clothes, are destroyed by the fire, a situation that left them calling for support from all and sundry. All the efforts put into this family house is now an unforgettable memory. Famara Baji, GRTS News.
And now to a press release from the IEC, and it reads, the Independent Electoral Commission informs the public that Maria Mandong has withdrawn her candidature as an independent candidate in the 14th May 2022 by-elections for Bundung 6 Junction Ward in the Kanifing administrative area. Meanwhile, IEC will conduct council by-elections on Saturday 14th May 2022 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The by-elections will be conducted to elect councillors for Bundung 6 Junction Ward, London Corner Ward, Marakisa Ward and Sanyang wards, as those seats are currently vacant. IEC further urges political parties and candidates ensure that their supporters remain peaceful and orderly during their rallies and meetings. Offensive languages which will incite violence, according to IEC, must not be used during the campaign. All the eligible voters are urged to come out and vote peacefully, vote at where they have registered. Now note that only voters within the said wards are to vote in the by-election slated for 14th May 2022. Finally, the release adds that counting of votes will be done on the spot at the polling stations. Now the release ends. Now the 18th edition of Governing Board meeting of the African Organization of English-Speaking Supreme Audit Institutions, AFROSAI, is underway in Banjul. The Gambia is hosting this year's event of the annual convergence, which brings together delegates from member countries and development partners to share ideas and best practices in the execution of auditing mandates. Now, Ibrahim Ajala covered the opening ceremony graced by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Sidi Keita, and this is his report.
The Supreme Audit Institutions from Anglophone Africa is in session. The Gambia National Audit Office is hosting this year's event in Banjul, with delegates from member countries and other international institutions in attendance. The agenda is centered around accountability and the application of standard audit principles and procedures to watch over spendings of public funds. Karamba Toure, Auditor General of the Gambia National Audit Office, welcomed delegates to the Banjul Summit. He said the meeting is paramount in sharing ideas and best practices to strengthen the mandate of audit institutions for sustainable development.
As we kick off this very important meeting, I am optimistic that our deliberations will yield outcomes that will further reinforce our role for greater impact in our governments, our legislatures, as well as ordinary citizens of our respective countries. In the Gambia, the National Audit Office continues to carry out its mandate as enshrined in the Constitution of the Gambia by conducting various types of audits of government and related government authorities and programs, ranging from financial audits, performance, compliance, and special audits.
Mohammed Ali is the chairperson of the organization. The Somali National expressed confidence in the work of the umbrella body of Supreme Audit Institutions in English-speaking Africa and hope that the Banjul meeting will lead to greater outcome.
We will be greatly benefit from the very topical discussions in the next 3 days around of the themes of increasing accountability and reducing corruption through government audits, designing value-adding audit based on the country risk profiles and the independence of our size and the broadness of our mandate to conduct highly impact audits.
Gambian parliamentarian Honorable Alajimbo, who serves as the Deputy Chairperson of the Finance and Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly of the Gambia, cited the need to empower audit institutions to ensure accountability and transparency in the use of public funds.
To empower and support supreme audit institutions should be everyone's business, and non-state actors alike, if we want to ensure transparency, accountability, and probity in our public finance management systems in all institutions financed by public funds. Thus, the focus of this forum is not only to present and reward best performance audit, report to prize winners, but equally to brainstorm on strategies and mechanisms that would ensure and strengthen the accountability of public funds in our public institutions.
Meanwhile, Tanzania and the Gambia have been awarded prizes for presenting best performance audit reports in 2019 and 2020, respectively. The 5-day meeting is expected to feature strategic review of member institutions and chart a way forward. Ibrahima Diallo, GRTS News.
Now, the Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmadou Lamine Samate, and his Senegalese counterpart, Abdoulaye Diouf Sarr, on Sunday presided over the launch of a joint cross-border bed net distribution campaign. The event, held in Karang, Senegal, is part of efforts to curb malaria infections in the Senegambia region. Well, Alajimbai has more on that report.
As part of efforts to eliminate the deadly disease, the Ministry of Health, through the National Malaria Control Program and support from partners including the Catholic Relief Services, is set to distribute over 2 million bed nets. Their Senegalese counterparts also plan to distribute over 14 million bed nets in Senegal. Speaking at a colorful luncheon, the Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmadou Lamine Samate, said the initiative is part of the two governments' commitment to eliminate malaria in the Senegambia region by 2030.
The experience of synchronizing this campaign has shown that in addition to setting a common goal and a political will for malaria elimination, by our two governments, effective collaboration across multilateral and bilateral donors is important to optimize the financial and technical resources. Continued investments in malaria control now will propel malaria endemic countries towards near zero deaths by 2030.
Despite the high prevalence and death rates of malaria in Africa, the Gambia, according to the health minister, has made significant gains in reducing malaria infections.
A lot has been done in the control of malaria in the Gambia. Malaria prevalence has reduced from 4% in 2010 to 0.1% in 2017. The incidence of malaria has reduced by 74%. And mortality due to malaria has drastically reduced up to 50%.
The Senegalese Minister of Health, Diouf Sarr, joined his Gambian counterpart to advise beneficiaries to make the best use of the bed nets, saying the initiative is crucial in the fight against malaria. Our two ministries have joined forces with expertise in the fight against malaria with a view to eliminate this disease. The mosquito net distribution campaign is one of the best strategies to significantly reduce malaria cases and deaths. Through it, we combine our efforts to eliminate this disease. The WHO country representative, Dr. Desta Tirone, hailed the efforts of the two countries in the fight against malaria and assured his office's support to the health sector.
We are still significantly further ahead in our progress to curtail malaria compared to the year 2000. This mosquito net distribution campaign is but one of the many steps we at global level can take to tackle the public health problem of importance.
The initiative will reach people at risk of malaria with the services they need. And one of those, according to Baba Balajo of the Catholic Relief Services, is the long-lasting insecticide-treated bed nets, which he said CRS will continue to provide.
This number represents the first batch of nets to be supplied directly to all households, which will be followed by a further distribution of 500,000 nets to children under the age of 5 years and pregnant women using public health facilities in the next 2 to 3 years.
Beneficiaries thank the two governments and their partners for their relentless efforts in the fight against malaria. As part of the bilateral collaboration, officials reaffirmed their commitment to eliminate malaria by 2030 while warning against complacency. Alajimbai, GRTS News.
Now, moving on, the Board and Management of Crab Island Technical and Vocational Training Foundation on Monday honored 8 former principals of Crab Island Secondary School. The event, as Khadijatu Jallo reports, is in recognition of their roles in the administration of excellent teaching and learning in the country.
Alhaji Maktar, fondly known as Master Silla, Charles G. Dixon, Alhaji Aliu Kamabaji, James M.B. Abraham, Kekoto Mane, Aji Awa Jaw Oba, and Alhaji Ibrahim Hussein Fall, who were all former principals of Crab Island Secondary School, have been honored by the current management of the institute, which is now changed as a technical and vocational training center. Family members of the fallen heroes took turns to give a biography of their late parents' exemplary leadership they have manifested in the country's educational sector.
He attained a diploma in the principles and practices of education. Whilst at Newland Park College, Matters' interest in sports did not take a back seat. It rekindled, being himself a former athlete and a sports enthusiast and a football referee back home in the Gambia. He made his presence felt in the arena. He made it to the FIFA's first Gambian certified referee and the first Gambian certified FIFA instructor, one of the first in Africa. Now, in 1958, he was promoted to come and head Crab Island Senior Modern School.
His next appointment was as headmaster of Latrikunda Secondary Technical School, where he served for a number of years before he was transferred to Crab Island Senior Secondary Technical School. His passion for learning never wavered. Kekoto pursued various other certifications and degrees both in the Gambia and abroad. He remained a lifelong educationist and joined Action Aid the Gambia as an education administrator upon his retirement from Crab Island.
The chairman, Crab Island TVET Foundation, Honorable Usman Silla, highlighted the importance of remembering the fallen educationists who have dedicated their entire lives in serving humanity.
The former Crab Island School had over half a century churned out a multitude of students who occupy positions of responsibility at all levels in our society, ranging from the simple responsibility of managing a family, being a household head, is thanks to having passed through Crab Island. And then, of course, some are assuming official tasks. I am one of them. I have been a National Assembly member. It is our hope that this modest move will signal a departure from this laissez-faire attitude or non-chance towards the past and thus set the pace for our society to start embracing the culture of honoring people who deserve honor.
Honorable Silla commended partners like YEP, TICA, MRC Holland Foundation, and individuals within and outside for their endless support.
We are making do with the first cohort of 175 trainees, and they are being trained in 7 different technical vocational skills areas. And we were able to manage for each of these 175 to be on scholarship. None of them is paying a butut to be trained. And in addition, they are being stipend. They are being given stipend, each of them. And those who live outside of Banjul are giving an additional transport allowance. I want to enjoin each and every one of you to take ownership of Crab Island. Crab Island is not Usman Silla's.
Historian Hasum Sise, former student Dr. Adama Sala, and several other speakers thanked the management of the institute for changing school to a skills training center, which gives an opportunity to train young people to be skillful as well as self-reliance in creating employment and employability.
This school has helped to build a whole generation of Gambian leaders. Now, this is important because the previous headmasters have just been honored and the headmistresses of this school. And all of them, what they have done in the period between 1958 to the period of 1998 was to mold Gambians in this school, so that people from Crab Island have been known to be militant, to be very expressive, to be bold, and to be ready to assert their rights and freedoms.
Students and family members also shared words of wisdom with the national broadcaster.
As he had Crab Island very dear to his heart, it was very close to him. After 2 decades of neglect and retrogression, we're seeing Crab Island coming up, gaining its lost glory. We hope and pray that the hopes and aspirations of the present management will be achieved.
The officials say if the school received the needed support, would immensely address technical and vocational capacities of the country. Khadijatu Jallow, reporting for GRTS News. Late advocate.
There, we now head to the Central Focus Office for today's weather news. Welcome back. We now focus on sports because the Blue Boys Walidan Football Club suffered a second successive defeat in the Gambia Football Federation's Male First Division League as they lost 1-0 to Hawks in March, day 18th at the Independence Stadium. Well, our sports correspondent Farmer Abaji reports.
This was another disappointing evening for the Blue Boys. Their galaxy of top stars is still not paying off as they continue to struggle in the league. Hawks, a side well known for frustrating their opponents with their close control of the ball, did a similar thing against Walidan and threatened on 2 occasions in the initial proceedings, before ultimately opening the scoring in the 19th minute, when Bokar Fall had his shot hit the post and Umar Sarr rolled into an empty net for the breakthrough goal. Walidan tried to stage a fight back before the break, but all their attacks were averted by Hawks, who missed what really should have been a second for them at the stroke of halftime. From the restart, Walidan attacked Hawks and missed chances that really should have been goals for them, including this one from Abdullah Mane. So concerned about their reputation and position in the standings, Walidan tried as they might for an equalizer, even to the extent of Coach Fodeba acting as a ball boy to prevent any time wasting. But the composure of Hawks was to their advantage, as they contained Walidan well to register a vital win that saw them move level on points with Brikama United and Royal de Banjul at the summit, both of whom are on 33 points. Farmer Abadi, GRTS News.
Well, we will now take another break, but up next is news from beyond our borders. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now, in the internationals, Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday sought to cast Moscow's invasion of Ukraine as a necessary move against aggression, despite no evidence that Russia was under imminent threat from either Ukraine or NATO. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, for his part, said his country would not allow Russia to appropriate Europe's victory over Nazism in World War II for his own purposes. Now, France 24 picks up the rest of that story.
In his opening remarks at Russia's annual Victory Day parade, Vladimir Putin lays out his view on the war in Ukraine.
Our soldiers fought the enemy near Moscow and Leningrad, Kiev and Minsk, Stalingrad and Kursk, Sevastopol and Kharkiv. And now these days you are fighting for our people in the Donbass, for the security of our homeland, Russia.
Comparing his invasion to when Russia defended itself against Nazi Germany in World War II, Putin says that the West refused any constructive dialogue prior to the war. The Russian leader claims Western powers were seeking to invade Russian territory, leaving him with no choice but to carry out what he calls a special operation.
Everything suggested that a clash with neo-Nazis, backed by the United States and their little friends, would be inevitable.
Silence falls over the Red Square to honor Russian soldiers who've died in Ukraine. No formal declaration of an annexation of the Donbass region, now largely under Moscow's control, and neither has Putin ever officially declared war on Ukraine. In his
polls have closed to elect a new president rather, in the Philippines on Monday, with the son of former dictator Ferdinand Marcos as the favorite to win the high-stakes race and restore his family to the pinnacle of power. Now, nearly 40 years after the patriarch was deposed by a popular revolt and the family chased into exile, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. looks set to complete their remarkable comeback from pariahs to the peak of the political power. Well, here's details in this France 24 report.
More than 40 years after his dictator father was ousted, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is tipped to return the family name to power. The 64-year-old is one of 10 presidential candidates in Monday's election, but only he and human rights lawyer Lenny Robredo have a credible chance of winning. The poll is seen as a rematch of the 2016 vice presidential race, which Marcos Jr. looked set to win, but then lost to Robredo by some 200,000 votes.
I vote BBM and Inday Sara for the president and vice president.
We all know the track records of Robredo, and she is very transparent and also a great leader. We can see that during her vice presidency and during the pandemic times.
Helping to buoy Marcos Jr.'s popularity is his running mate for vice president, current first daughter, Sara Duterte. Her father, Rodrigo, is being investigated by the International Criminal Court after leading a brutal crackdown on drugs. Rights groups view this election as a make-or-break moment for the Philippines' democracy. If Marcos Jr. wins, they fear he could rule with an even heavier fist. Elections in the Southeast Asian nation are often volatile and can lead to violence. More than 60,000 security force personnel have been deployed to safeguard polling stations. Since early January, there have been 16 election-related incidents, including 4 shootings.
Well, viewers, this now brings us to the end of this news bulletin. But before we take leave of you, here is a quick look at our top stories once again. His Excellency President Adama Barrow embarked on spot visits to several infrastructural projects in the Greater Banjul area. The Minister of Finance, Sidi Keita, presided over the opening ceremony of 18th edition of English-speaking African Supreme Audit Forum underway in Banjul. Plus, the newly appointed Minister of Petroleum and Energy has started work with a day's familiarization visit to NAWEC stations in urban areas. In soccer, the Blue Boys Walidan Football Club has suffered a second successive defeat in the GFF's Male First Division League as they lost 1-0 to Hawks. In the internationals, polls have closed to elect a new president in the Philippines with the son of former dictator Ferdinand Marcos as the favorite to win the high-stakes race and restore his family to the pinnacle of power. And that's all from me and the entire news crew. Until then, thank you for the pleasure of your company and do stay tuned.